Hi guys, it's Jennifer with NestEgg back with, surprise, another iBond video. So, the iBond rate for May has officially been announced. 9.62%, exactly as projected. So, if you purchased your iBonds between November 2021 and April 2022, how much interest will you earn during your first 12-month holding period? And how much could you earn during your first 18-month holding period, depending on where inflation is headed? Plus, how do these numbers change if you purchase your iBonds between May and October 2022? That's what I'll be answering in today's video. And in the very end, I'll talk about all the ways you can buy iBonds for your portfolio via TreasuryDirect. For you iBond fans who've already maxed out your annual limit for 2022, I'll also go through very briefly how I just bought another tranche of iBonds. Perhaps it'll be something that'll also work for you if you still have excess cash lying around. And it has nothing to do with gifting, for those of you who are wondering. As I've mentioned before, you don't want too many undeliverable illiquid iBonds sitting in your gift box. Plus, no one wants the friendly TreasuryDirect folks to freak out and pull this legal loophole altogether for super savers of America. Feel free to skip ahead to the sections that are relevant to you. I've included the timestamps below. For those of you completely new to iBonds, I'm going to do a quick, literally less than 1 minute explanation first on how the iBond rate is calculated. The iBond rate, also known as the iBond composite rate, is made up of two components. A fixed rate component that's set at the time of purchase and does not change, ever, for as long as you own your iBond. Here's the fixed rate for all iBonds purchased between May and October 2022. This semi-annual inflation rate component is also set at the time of purchase, but does change every 6 months, hence semi-annual. And this change typically happens in May and November. Here's the semi-annual inflation rate for all iBonds purchased between May and October 2022. Multiplied by 2, again because it's semi-annual, add it to the fixed rate, and hocus pocus, that's the iBond composite rate on an annualized basis for all iBonds purchased between May and October 2022. So, let's assume you bought $10,000 of iBonds sometime between November 2021 and April 2022. In the first 6-month holding period, you would earn $356. That's the annualized 7.12% iBond rate for all iBonds purchased during that time period, divided by 2 because it's just for 6 months. In the second 6-month holding period, this is what you'll earn. That's this new annualized rate here for all iBonds purchased between May and October 2022, again, divided by 2 because it's just for 6 months. Remember that the interest on iBonds is compounded semi-annually, meaning that in the second 6-month holding period, you're earning interest on your initial $10,000 iBond investment plus the interest from the first 6-month holding period that's now been added to that initial investment amount. And here's your total interest earned on your iBonds over the 2 combined periods, so your first 12-month holding period, and the annualized and semi-annual yield over that same period. A pretty good, stable, risk-free return, in my mind at least. Do note that you cannot redeem your iBonds in the first year of purchase. And if you decide to redeem within the first 5 years of purchase, you will lose the last 3 months' interest as an early redemption penalty. So, if that's what you're planning on doing, you'll need to factor this in to get to your effective real rate of return. Also note that these are pre-tax returns. While iBonds are exempt from state and local income taxes, you will need to pay federal income taxes on all interest earned upon redemption, unfortunately, unless you use them to fund educational expenses, a topic for another time. Now, what could you earn on these same iBonds over the first 18-month holding period, not just the first 12 months? Let's play out what these numbers could look like during the third 6-month holding period, depending on where inflation is headed. Basically, depending on what this November 2022 projected annualized I-bond rate will be. Divide this by 2 and you have the November 2022 projected I-bond semi-annual inflation rate in this column. I've assumed in this analysis that the fixed rate does not change for the sake of simplicity. This top section here assumes that in November 2022, inflation will stay the same. Nothing changes, meaning that the projected annualized I-bond rate and the projected semi-annual inflation rate will also stay the same. Here's what you'd earn on your I-bonds during the first 6-month holding period. And here's what you'd earn during the second 6-month holding period. These numbers are already set no matter what happens with the projected November rate. And here's what you could earn in the third 6-month holding period if nothing changes in November. This section here assumes that inflation goes up in the next few months, meaning that the projected annualized I-bond rate and the semi-annual inflation rate in November will also go up. I've capped the projected annualized I-bond rate at 12%, meaning the semi-annual inflation rate is also capped at 6%. Because, well, it's terrifying even for my 10-year-old to imagine anything higher. The price of ice cream in our neighborhood has gone up 40% in the past few months, by the way. And this section here, these 2 rows at the bottom, assume that the Fed pulls out their bazooka on those rate hikes. Inflation comes down, causing the projected annualized I-bond rate and subsequently the semi-annual inflation rate to also come down. But we would need a real bazooka for that, not a half percentage point or even perhaps 75 basis points pretend bazooka. What you see from this table is that even if inflation starts ebbing so rapidly that by the next I-bond rate reset date in November, the annualized I-bond rate falls to 6%, meaning that the semi-annual inflation rate would be 3%, what you'd earn after 18 months of holding your I-bonds would still make you the I-bond hero at Thanksgiving dinner. Here's the annualized return under the different scenarios for reference. You can bet that I'll be tracking the inflation numbers and rate hikes closely given how many I-bonds we own and how expensive those trips to the ice cream shop and gas station are getting. In fact, April's inflation numbers are expected to be released next week, so stay tuned. And for those of you new to I-bonds, take a look at this video here for a more detailed I-bond interest and inflation explanation, as well as more information on I-bond limits and restrictions. I've included the link in the description below. Now, if you haven't bought any I-bonds yet, with that extra cash of yours sitting in a bank earning practically nothing these days, think extra cash as anything above and beyond your emergency fund. What are you waiting for? Let's say you buy, as in the previous example, $10,000 of I-bonds, but this time between May and October 2022. This column shows what you'd earn during the first 6-month holding period. That's this annualized I-bond rate for all I-bonds purchased between May and October 2022, divided by 2 to get the semi-annual inflation rate. This stays the same no matter what because it's already set. This column shows you what you could earn on your I-bonds during the second 6-month holding period, depending on where the November 2022 projected annualized I-bond rate and therefore the new semi-annual inflation rate ends up at. And these columns here, they show your projected total interest earned over the course of the first 12-month holding period, as well as your annualized rate of return, depending on the different inflation scenarios. Again, as in the earlier example, this section here assumes that in November 2022, inflation will stay the same. No changes, meaning the projected annualized I-bond rate and the projected semi-annual inflation rate will also stay the same. And this section assumes that inflation goes up, and along with it, the projected annualized I-bond rate and the semi-annual inflation rate. And this section here at the bottom assumes that the Fed actually steps in with inflation impacting rate hikes that will bring down inflation. and therefore the projected annualized I-bond rate and the semi-annual inflation rate. As I noted earlier, there is no way to cash out your I-bonds in the first year of purchase. The government will not give you your money back. And if you decide to redeem within the first 5 years of purchase, you will lose the last 3 months' interest as an early redemption penalty. So do factor this in, as well as any federal income taxes due upon redemption if you're planning on redeeming your I-bonds before the 5-year anniversary. I-bonds are 30-year term U.S. government savings bonds with an annual purchase limit of $10,000 per Social Security number or tax ID number. But don't let that get you down if you have more than $10,000 of excess cash sitting in your bank account, because there are many ways you can buy I-bonds via TreasuryDirect. The new way I've been working on is towards the end for those of you who are aware of all the other purchase methods and want to skip ahead. So you can buy I-bonds for yourself via TreasuryDirect. Check out the step-by-step video here if you're doing this for the first time. I've included the video link in the description below. It's important to understand all the limitations, restrictions, and details that come with buying and owning I-bonds before you dive in, including minimum holding periods, early withdrawal penalties, and tax implications, just to name a few. And because this question always comes up, no, you can't buy I-bonds via the likes of Fidelity, Vanguard, and Schwab, and not via your 401k or other retirement accounts. You can really only buy them on TreasuryDirect. You can buy I-bonds for your spouse or even gift them to your spouse so that both of you can buy a bit more than the annual purchase limit of $10,000. It's a legal loophole that I discovered earlier this year that's helped us and some of the I-bond fans and super savers on this channel bulk up our I-bond portfolios and not lose so much of our purchasing power to inflation. I've included these 2 gifting videos in the description below as well. Watch them together, again for limitations, restrictions, and details before you go on an I-bond gifting bonanza. You can buy I-bonds for your children, you can buy them for your business, or even multiple businesses if you have more than one. Here's our I-bond playlist if you want to learn more about all these various purchasing methods. And here's the latest. You can even buy them for your trust. I know some of you with trust have already done this, but I also know that a lot of you don't have a trust. Well, I didn't have one either before my I-bond adventures, but I do now. And my trust owns $10,000 of I-bonds. Maybe it'll own another $10,000 next year. Who knows? Let's see where things are at. I'll dive deeper into how to do this over the next few weeks. I don't think it's really very hard to do, so stay tuned as always. All right, I-bond fans and super savers, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and see you again soon with another money-saving, wealth-building video.